The sequel to Breath of the Wild doesn't have an official name yet, but we are only a matter of months away from the release of the most anticipated game of 2023. Well, today I'm going to have a look at why Nintendo hasn't released the name of the game just yet, plus also speculate as to what the name might be for Breath of the Wild 2. Well, if you're new around here or find this useful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for all the latest Legend of Zelda content and turn on notifications by hitting that bell. Well, before we get stuck into today's topic, I would love to hear from you, and let me know in the comments what you think the sequel to Breath of the Wild is gonna be called. Well, Nintendo confirmed the sequel to Breath of the Wild was in development at E3 2019. However, the game hasn't been given an official name since then, and we are stuck in the middle of an awkward labelling like Breath of the Wild 2 or the sequel to Breath of the Wild. Now, this has gone on far too long, and it'd be great to see Nintendo finally put a name on this thing. Well, the game is set for spring 2023, and one of two things is probably going to happen. Either the name is going to leak, or I'm sure Nintendo would prefer, the next time they show off the game at Nintendo Direct, they're going to reveal the title of the game. The temptations for leaks are going to be really, really great over the autumn and the winter months, so if I were Nintendo, I'd come out and confirm the title ASAP. Well, next up, let's have a look at why Nintendo may have not revealed the title just yet. Well, Nintendo does seem to be holding out a little bit longer than normal when it comes to revealing the title for the next mainline Zelda entry. Well, Bill Trinan from Nintendo of America did give some clues as to why this might be back at E3 2021. So Bill said, as to why we're holding back on the name, you just have to stay tuned because obviously Zelda names are kind of important. Those subtitles, they start to give away little bits of hints and maybe what is going to happen. Well, Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be shorthand, and it's natural for people to want to find a shorthand way to frame it. We're still calling it the sequel to Breath of the Wild, so Bill Trinan said that back at E3 2021. So Nintendo seems a little bit nervous about revealing the title because it might give something away. It's hard to think what that could be. Although, looking back at this, when the name is revealed is going to be interesting. Do other Zelda game titles give away the plot or something important? Well, we got Skyward Sword, that's quite ambiguous. Although it was set in the sky, and it also was about the Master Sword. Well, then we got Ocarina of Time, that is a direct reference to an item in the game, but without context, it doesn't really mean anything. Wind Waker, probably the same thing. Twilight Princess, again, that's quite ambiguous. Unless the new game is going to be called Legend of Zelda This Time the Princess Dies, I'm not really sure what the title is going to give away. Well, given what Bill Trinan said, let me know in the comments your theories about the name of the sequel and let me know what you think it's going to be and what plot points do you think it could give away. Well, next up, let's have a look at what the title for Breath of the Wild 2 could be. So looking at the trailers so far, it looks like we've got a Ganondorf corpse, plus the Master Sword appears to be broken or corrupted. According to patents, we're going to be fighting in the skies, and we know the game is going to take place above ground, underground, and also in the sky too. My money is on something related to the Master Sword and perhaps restoring it to its former glory. A title maybe with sword or quest in the name. And there are also a lot of graphical similarities between Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild 2 so far, so maybe something like Sky or Flight, that also makes sense to me. Link also has his arm corrupted or changed in some way, so maybe the title could be related to his arm or his new abilities. Plus the story for the game could be playing with a legend from 10,000 years ago, so there is also a time theme to consider. It's a tricky one because Breath of the Wild was such a left field name, and doesn't really relate to the game. Wild could indicate the big open world, but Breath doesn't really make sense in the context of the game that we've played. So the game coming out in spring 2023 is also a sequel, and previous Legend of Zelda sequels haven't really been related by name. So you got Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, they don't really sound connected. You got Legend of Zelda and The Adventure of Link, maybe a little bit more related, but still, not really. Well, there is one title out there that has gained some traction, and that is Breath of Duality. This was reported on by a games journalist called Paul Gale, so he's written for Nintendo Power among other websites and publications over the years, and had a blog post titled Rumour, Breath of the Wild sequel name is, or was, The Legend of Zelda Breath of Duality. So Gale went on to say, so the sequel to Breath of the Wild, its main hook, is right in the name, which establishes the breath familiarity from the 2017 hit, and gives a nod to the fact that you can play more as the aforementioned title's Link, including the various polar themes, hence duality. Duality between character abilities on land and floating regions, past and present, and also darkness and light. If it's real, it does make sense as to why Nintendo and IG Onuma have been so hush-hush on the title, so if it's fake or not yet final close to what the actual name ends up being, still makes for an interesting topic to discuss. Well, YouTuber Nintendo Prime also discussed this on a recent live chat, saying, if you guys are fishing for who his source is, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to tell you who his source is. He can confirm it in the chat. Me and Paul Gale had a private conversation. I'm well aware of how he got this information. Me and Paul have a trust. I'm not going to break that trust just to reveal the sources. All I can tell you is it's someone who's fairly reliable. Well, interesting stuff there, if not a little bit speculative from Paul Gale and Nintendo Prime. But what do you think about Breath of Duality? Personally, I'm not very keen on the idea of keeping breath in the title. I can see why Nintendo might do this. Given the massive success of Breath of the Wild, perhaps they want to keep some consistency, but I would have thought they'd be able to do this through the overarching banner of The Legend of Zelda. Duality is fairly ambiguous, and it does sound like it could be a title for the game, but I don't really think this is going to be the title. I'm going to stick to my guns and say it's going to be something related to the Master Sword. Yes, we've had Skyward Sword before, but I think we're going to have something similar. Well, let me know in the comments what you think the title to Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be, and what do you think of the name Breath of Duality? Well, that is it for this look at the title of Breath of the Wild 2, and as always, thank you so much for watching or listening. For more Legend of Zelda content like this, hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to Triforce Times. Or you can check me out on Twitter at Triforce Times. Well, if you enjoyed this video, found it useful, liking and sharing the video would really help me out. Otherwise, check out the other videos on the channel. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you soon.